Copyright disclaimer under the Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing.
Having the ability to save and transact is something that should be universal, and a lot of forms have adopted that goal. We won't be able to do that with traditional systems. That is, the cost of bank branches and paperwork is just too high. But fortunately, starting with countries like Kenya, and more recently with a robust system in places like India, we see that you can have digital financial inclusion. India is a great example. They did a lot of their own technology, which won't be possible for other countries. And so the role of the Gates Foundation as an advocate for those who don't have access today is to make sure there's technology and standards, including open source work that we're providing through the financial switch, which is called Moja Loop, and through the digital identity system, which is extremely valuable, not just for financial activities, but for health and voting and education, and that's called MOSIP.
So since there isn't going to be a one-size-fits-all solution, what is the role that you see the private sector playing in being able to collaborate with different governments to ensure that we move forward?
Well, once you have the digital money system, then there's all sorts of services and applications that can be built on top of that, whether it's helping with health or education or agriculture, giving people visibility into their financial status, giving them advice, should they take a loan, should they buy insurance, what makes sense. The phone becomes a connection for low cost interaction with those customers that doesn't require human activity that would be beyond the means of the people we're trying to get to who don't yet have these accounts. So the digital revolution, which of course was where I worked before moving full-time to the foundation, here we're trying to make sure that the developing countries have the benefit of the digital revolution, in some cases before it gets to even some of the rich countries who have legacy systems that people are so used to that the speed that they'll transition out of them won't be as fast as, say, China or India that didn't have that history. And so it's really learning what worked in China and India, and now making it easy for even smaller countries to do this, working with a lot of partners, including the World Bank, African Development Bank, many of them. So private sector will help these central banks create these systems, but moreover, the phone companies, the banks, and the entrepreneurs will build applications that use these financial capabilities.
Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 1. I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower, and will watch to see what he will say unto me, and what I shall answer when I am reproved. And Yahweh answered me and said, write the vision, and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak, and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachak Wadash. Double honors to the elder apostles, the elder bishops, the elders of Great Millstone, who rule very well, very beautifully. Double salutations be unto the Akim, out here pushing this gospel in truth and in sincerity, to the best of their ability, given to them by Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Peace, blessings, and salutations be unto the elect scattered abroad. May the election of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Lord willing, fall upon your houses. This is Brother Quanawath, come back at you, Lord will, with the edifying lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Lord will. It is edifying, Lord will. It is straight to the point. And we are here right? We've been telling y'all, starting with the elder apostles of Great Millstone on down, right? We've been telling y'all that Esau Edom, right, is going to set up a digital age, right? A technocracy has been established, right? Which, when you go into that word technocracy, it ultimately goes into a global government of technological giants, or people that run this technology, right? They're setting up a digital infrastructure, right? Which is ultimately going to be a trap and a snare unto you people. This is what Esau Edom is trying to do. He's trying to trap you people into receiving this RFID micro CHIP, so that way he can be a perpetual ruler over you, and you people will be his perpetual slaves. Right? We're looking down the barrel of the RFID micro CHIP being made mandatory, right? Which is the next major prophecy to ultimately take place. And I bring that out because I was, doing a little bit of research, and came across this article right on the peoplesvoice.tv. And I'll just say, I'll I'll take a page out of the priest Azamoath from Dallas camps. I'll abbreviate his name, right? So BG says revolutionary digital ID will exclude non-compliant citizens from banking, healthcare, and education. And see, these things are all going to be connected, right? Via one singular device, which is the RFID micro CHIP. Right? And those that ultimately do not take this charagma and receive it, right, in their body, right, they're ultimately going to be excommunicated. And again, we're going to grab that within scripture, right? That's prophesied to take place. But I want to read this article, right? It says American citizens, right? It says American citizens who want to continue using banking services, healthcare, and education must comply with incoming digital ID regulations, according to BG, who has doubled down on his threat to exclude the non-compliant part from participating in society. Man, this right here is prophecy speaking loud and clear, right? Louder than it's ever been speaking, man. The last few years, prophecy has been popping off the pages, man. Damn, they're standing right in front of us, right? It says, praising digital infrastructure developed in countries such as India and China, G declared that the U.S. must build similar systems with the support of governments, the Federal Reserve, international institutions, and private companies. And see, this is the same thing that when you go back, right? I want to say maybe like 3-4 years ago, you had Klaus Schwab, right, the head of the World Economic Forum, which are the basically the unelected government, global officials, if you will, not government, but global officials, right? That's ultimately what the WEF is, right? It's these rulers, right? These unelected rulers, unelected officials, right? That have ultimately been, pushing this fourth industrial revolution, right? Which is a digital society, a digital global society, if you will. They want everybody on the same page. And again, Klaus Schwab, he made a statement, stating that China was going to be an example, right, or the greatest example for the rest of the world to follow, right? And when you look at China already has a social credit system, man. China already has, this digital Orwellian society established, right? People's faces getting plastered, people getting locked out of their bank accounts, right? People having to sleep, on the streets. Brothers have done lessons after lessons and revealing all these different things that's going on over in China, right? A carbon footprint. All these things have been introduced and talked about. You got over in Kenya, BG is, it is and has been, pushing a digital infrastructure over there, to where they're making it to where your passports, your birth certificates, your social security card, everything over there is digital, right? So they do little, experiments here and there, right, in different places, right, which ultimately, as in the different places, the different things that they talk about and they do, that all together is going to take place, right? And it's going, and that's what Esau wants, right? An NWO where everything is completely digital, right? You watch that movie Total Recall, you watch the movie Demolition Man, right? You watch the movies Terminators, all these different so-called futuristic movies, right? And everything is digital. And we're seeing that Esau, again, it's called predictive programming, right? This is what Esau Edom wants, right? It's what the elites, the elite banker families, right? The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the DuPonts, the Gettys, the Oppenheimers, right? And the sub-elites, right? The Bezos, the Gates, the so on and so forth, right? The Soros, right? This is what they all want. And this is the way that society is going, right? And again, they're using China and India, right, as those prime examples. Right? Well, go and do your research, on the digital infrastructure, the Orwellian society that these two major countries, right, have already set up. That's what they're trying to establish here in America, right? And really across the world. It says, once established, he says, banks, telecom firms, and technology companies can build additional services on top of the digital identity framework, and non-compliant citizens will be locked out of the system. And see, he called it MOSIP, right? In that video I played, pre-production of this one, he called it MOSIP, right? Which is basically, a platform, right, that allows for them to build, right, each country to be able to build, right, on this one, base platform, right, that ultimately, has all your digital information, and they'll be able to tailor it into them, into their own citizens. Again, right, and those who ultimately are not willing to comply, those who are not willing to, go along to get along, hey, well, you're going to be excommunicated, man. Matter of fact, I'm bringing this out, which we watched that video, but let me grab this in the NLT, or not the NLT, but the Blue Letter, Revelations. Chapter 13, and I'll start at verse 16, right? It says, and he causeth all, right? Because again, this is going to be made mandatory, right? And in the very near future, in order for you to be able to participate in society, you're going to have to take this RFID micro chip. And right now, it's starting with, like, over in the UK, in Mexico, you need a digital ID in order to work, in order to participate in certain things, right? This is something that they came out and stated, right? It was by the end of 2025, by the end of the parliament, right? That you had to have a digital ID established, right, in order for you to be able to work within, I think it was either London or just the UK as a whole. Right? So it starts there, right? Esau works in gradualism, right? It starts off with him making the digital ID mandatory, right? That's something that everybody can do. It's simple. It's easy, But that's just a step in that direction, right? That's step one, phase one, if you will, right? It says that he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, right? Because it doesn't matter who you are, right? You could be homeless, you could be in prisons, you could be the richest man on, one of the richest men on earth, right? He wants everybody, man, right? And these people that are in these tribes that have never experienced technology, right? They're still back, in barter and trade and growing crops and, farming and, having families and being, traditional. Man, we're talking about from them all the way to the most modern, people. The most cityfied people, right? They want everybody, from the the dumbest, right, to the smartest. They don't care. They want everybody, right? They want to be able to track, everything about you, right? That's what it's all about, right? It says to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. It doesn't really, honestly, it doesn't matter where you get it, right? If you get it, you know, whether it be in your left hand, your right hand, your forehead, your elbow, your wrist, right? It don't matter. He wants everybody to get it, right? It says that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. So it ultimately goes back to, you know, if you don't have it, you're not going to be able to buy. You're not going to be able to sell. You're not going to be able to get your paycheck, right? Because again, everything's going digital, right? You have companies that are not doing paychecks anymore, man. Like, they're not giving you a paycheck. They will not give you a paycheck. They just got rid of that, right? Everything is digital, right? And then on top of that, right, they're already setting up, right, that stablecoin infrastructure. They're already starting to, you know, I think it was the state of Wyoming, right, which I did a lesson on it a while ago. The state of Wyoming is now allowing, right, for the distribution, right, the buying, or basically the usage, right, the distribution and usage of actual stablecoin, right, within the states. The first state to allow that, right? At least you got a lot of, you know, Bitcoin, this and the third, right, going around, you know, but now it's stablecoin, right? And again, that's going to be the federal token, right? Global token, or global, you know, currency, right? That's stablecoin, right? Each country is going to be able to tailor it, right, to their, you know, it's, you know, the ruble, right, the digital ruble, or the digital dollar, the digital yuan, you know, whatever it may be. But nonetheless, it's still a stable coin, right? They might just call it something different, right? This is where, you know, society is going, man. And again, if you don't have it, because again, they're getting rid of the physical currencies, right? Nigeria, right? Remember, they, you know, a few years back, right, they were you know, burning all the physical cash in the streets, right? Piles of it, piles the size of cars, piles the size of lifted trucks, you know, being burnt in the streets. So you're not going to be able to have, because again, you're not going to be able to have physical currency. You're going to have to have that digital currency, right? And yes, right now it's, you know, it's on your phone, right? Your wallet on your phone. But soon it's going to be in that little rice grain, right? That little C hip, right? This is where society is going. This is where everything is leading to. The RFID micro C hip is the MO to the TB, right? Now let's grab that word, right here, Strong's G5480, right? It goes back to what? To charagma. Right? Charagma, right? Stamp and imprint the mark. It says a thing carved, right? A thing carved, sculpture, graven works, right? Something that's ultimately going to be put inside you, right? It's going to make, you know, a cut, right? Inside you, which goes back to the, you know, the first root word, right? Karax, right? A stake, palisade, right? Which is ultimately going to be the device that's going to be used, right? The device that's ultimately going to be used to insert that device, right? And then let's grab the second root word, which is grapho, right? Which is what? To write, right? To write with reference to the form of the letters. It says right here, to write to one, i.e. by writing in a written epistle to give information, right? Directions, right? All your information is going to be on that device, right? Your again, your education, right? Whether you finished high school, where you got your GED, or you got your diploma, right? Or maybe you didn't, finish high school, maybe you didn't go at all, maybe you dropped out, right? That will be in there, how many credits in college that you got, what college you went to, if you went to college, right? It's going to have your shoe size. It's going to have your, it's going to have all your personal information, your emails, your bank account, right? Your digital wallet, right? It's going to be attached to it. It's going to have your health records attached to it, right? It's going to have your voting status, right? What you are, right? Democrat, Republican, liberal, whatever it may be, right? Green Party. It's going to have all that information on it, man. And Esau is going to use that information, against you people. Right? If he ultimately says, hey, we don't want any liberals, right? We don't want any Democrats. Hey, well, guess what? Because and then you know what? They might have, somebody that is running for president and the lead are like, no, we want this person. Well, anybody that is a Democrat, hey, they might not be able to vote. They might turn off the ability to vote of that chip. So when you go to vote, you go to swipe your hand or something like that, man, and it just says, can't vote or not registered to vote or something like that. Well, now they got to pass you up, and then whoever they want, guess what? There it is, that person wins automatically by a landslide. Nobody voted against them, right? Esau's got that ability, right? This is what he's trying to establish, right? Esau wants to be the Most High, and he's trying to do it, right, through this technology, right, through the left-hand side. Right, when you read in Sirach, let's go to it, right? Sirach, the 18th chapter, right? And start at verse 1, it says, he that liveth forever hath created all things in general. It's talking about Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shah, right? It says, the Lord only is righteous, and there is none other but he. Here's the point. It says, who governeth the world with the palm of his hand, and all things obey his will, for he is the king of all, by his power dividing holy things among them from profane. So Esau wants that power, right? Esau wants that control. When you go into that word to govern, it means to control, right? Esau wants that control, and he's trying to do that via this device, right? Getting you people to take it, right? Which will ultimately solidify him, right? Being a perpetual ruler over you, right? Because when you go back to that word, charagma, right? You read it. It says right here, as a badge of servitude. Esau wants to make you people perpetual servants under him. Right? Because the Most High rules, in the kingdom of men, as the scriptures say. The Lord is the one that rules. The Lord is the one that setteth up kings and removeth kings, changes the times and the seasons. Right? Esau wants that power. Right? He truly sees himself as the Most High, but in reality, he's just a man. So he's trying to ultimately, because you got this devil making fucking outrageous, blasphemous statements that, hey, like Yuval Noah Harari, that God is dead. We're just trying to figure out how to hide the body. Right? That nigga made that fucking statement, bro. That's blasphemous, man. And then you got, Elon Musk, basically, making statements talking about, the miracles that they're able to do, right? Or what do you say? Jesus level miracles, which his name's not Jesus, right? It's Yahweh Shai, but, they're not going to say Yahweh Shai. We know that, right? So we understand what they're talking about, man. They're talking about the Messiah, That's blasphemous statements, man. So Esau sees himself as the Most High, and he's trying to set it himself up as the Most High, and anybody that ultimately doesn't want to comply with that, and that does not want to be, ultimately, agree with that, and you're going to be separated, right? Let's go back to the article, right? Because it states that, right? It says, G argues that this is simply modernization. To those with eyes to see, it looks like the construction of a digital cage, right? It says the concern is not the existence of digital IDs themselves, but the compulsory nature of them. If your bank account, medical records, education, and ability to vote are all connected to a single digital identity, access to everyday life will increasingly depend on maintaining an approved digital profile, right? Meaning if you are disapproved, right? They don't like something about you, or they view you as somebody that is an issue or a problem. Hey, well, there you go. Now you're locked out, right? It says combined with both emerging technologies, including digital currencies, biometric verification, and smart city systems, digital IDs will create an unprecedented system of monitoring and control, hence all the flock cameras, right? It says the ongoing rollout of 15-minute cities in Western countries has only intensified the danger. While supporters describe them as convenient urban planning, flagship cities including Oxford, England, are rapidly turning into highly regulated zones where movement, services, and economic activities are increasingly controlled by authorities through digital systems. The fundamental question is one of power. A system that grants access can only deny it. A system designed for convenience will, by its nature, also become a mechanism for surveillance and exclusion. As digital identity moves from optional technology to the gateway for banking, healthcare, education, and civic participation, critics warn that society may be sleepwalking into an open-air digital prison, one where freedom increasingly depends on permission granted by centralized systems. There you go, right? And again, if they don't want to give you that permission, they can lock you out, right? Let's go into that, right? Jumping up, right, to verse 15, Revelations 13, verse 15, it says he had power to give life unto the image of the beast. And that image is not speaking about an actual image, right, of Caesar Borgia, so-called white man. No, it's ultimately going into, the philosophy, right, that has ultimately been spread, across the world, right, through America, right, and that beast system, right, NATO, being the beast, right, the EU being those horns, being pushed right into all the world, and as we're seeing, is continuing to be pushed, right? This beast system being pushed, right? It says that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed, right? So if you ultimately don't worship this image, right, following the lifestyle and the ideology, that they're pushing, and ultimately receive this charagma, right, which is what you would do if you worship the image, right, that system, right? If you did, then you would take the charagma. If you take the charagma, right, well, guess what? Then you're part of Esau's system. If you do not, then he can lock you out, right? And that's the whole key, right? When you go into that word, killed, right? Strong's G615, apokteno, right? It goes into what? To kill in any way whatsoever, to destroy, allow to perish. So Esau, is going to actually kill people, man. But we understand this devil works in gradualism, right? He's not just going to do that right out, right? When you go to the root word, apo, it goes right back of separation, of local separation, right? It says of separation of apart from the whole, right? So, and again, right, it says right here, a physical distance, a state of separation that is of distance, physical distance of place, temporal, a distance of time, right? So ultimately, right, we've seen that with, the Crown Vic Royale, right, where he ultimately, 6 feet, 6 feet, 6 feet, right? That number 6, right? There's that number 6, man. Why couldn't it be 5 feet? Right? Why couldn't it be 7 feet? It had to be 6 feet. Of course, because that's Esau Edom, right? Just showing himself, man, being revealed. But nonetheless, what they do, man, that physical separation, it starts there, right? Esau works in gradualism, right? In this next one that's coming, right? When they make the RFID, because again, at one point they made it to where in order for you to be able to participate in society, you had to have that jab. In order for you to keep working, you had to have that jab. In order for you to go into these venues, you had to have that jab. In order for you to get groceries, in order for you to do this, in order for you to do that, you had to have that jab. Right? And they had their officers out there, right? Police and whatnot, stopping people that didn't have it. Preventing them from going into these stores, right? You've seen it, start to get more wild, like in France, overseas, In this next go around, phase 2, right? People are actually going to get killed, right? That's what's coming. It's not just going to be, some, another, a little, maybe the same or less harsher version of what we've seen with the C-19. No, it's going to be way worse, right? That's what's coming, right? As we read, right, going back, right? It says what? To kill in any way whatsoever, to destroy, to allow to perish. And Esau might not just physically kill you right then and there. He might make it to where you can't get no food, no water, and then guess what? You die of dehydration. You starve. Esau is a fucking devil. He definitely has that within him, and he will do it, and he's going to do it. The elect of the nation of Israel, right? They're going to trust in Yahweh Hashem Shah, right? They're not going to take this devil's, his device, right? Because we understand that because again, right? If you take it, then you're agreeing to this devil being a perpetual ruler over you. And that's not what we want, right? Scriptures say that we look for a new heavens and a new earth wherein dwelleth righteousness, man. See, this devil, right? If this devil is allowed to continue to rule, a wickedness would further increase. As the scriptures say, right? Lest the days be short, and there shall no flesh be saved because of the wickedness that's here. There shall no flesh be saved because of all the evil and wickedness that's being done here, man. So why would you want this devil to rule over you, right? Perpetually. That's fucking foolish, man. Scriptures say, arise and depart, for this is not your rest, right? It is polluted and it will destroy you with the sword of destruction, roughly paraphrasing, man. That's Micah 2:10. This place is polluted. This place is wicked. So you should be wanting Yahweh Shemel Shai to come and take this damn devil out of power, which is going to happen, right? 1 Corinthians 15:24. That's the mindset that you should be in. That's the mindset of the elect, right? Scriptures say that they love not their lives unto death. Fuck this place, man, and what it has to offer. But see, 2/3 of our people, majority of these people in the world, right, and 2/3 of you wicked Israelites here in America, and even you wicked Israelites outside of America, right? Y'all gonna, a lot of y'all are gonna take it. A lot of y'all are gonna take it because Esau gonna put you in that position, man. You ain't gonna be able to feed your kids. You're not gonna be able to eat eat any kind of food yourselves. No water, right? The Lord is plaguing this place with famines, right? The drought, mega droughts. Esau's taking up all the water, recalling a whole bunch of food and stuff like that. Hey, so this devil's got all the food. He's got all the water, right? BG buying up all the water. What is he gonna do? He's gonna sell it back to y'all, man. But see, you have to have the charagma in order to receive it. And if you take it, not only, right, is it possible that this devil will turn on you and kill you anyways, right? But more importantly, Yahweh Shemel Shah will destroy you. Let's grab that. Revelations 14. Revelations 14 and verse 9, it says, and the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, right? Really, again, we understand that it don't matter where you take it, right? Just if you receive it, period, right? It says, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of the Most High, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever, and they have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. Right? So if you receive the RFID micro C hit, man, you're done for. It's over for you, man. You receive it, you die. There's no repenting from it. Nowhere in the scriptures will you find, anybody repenting or the Lord saying that you can repent from taking the charagma, right? The mark. There's no such thing. So if you take it, you will die, man. Don't trust in man. Trust in Yahweh Shemel Shai. Cursed be the man that trusteth in man. Jeremiah 17, man. But blessed is the man that that trusteth in the Lord and whose hope the Lord is. You know, so we're going to trust in Yahweh Shem El Shai, man. Lord will all the way into the end. Fuck this devil and his system. You know? Just stay faithful, stay prayed up, man, and do not take that charagma. You know, so with that, Lord will is edifying, Lord will straight to the point. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, or Chakwadash, double honors to the elder apostles, the elder bishops, the elders of Great Millstone. Until next time, I say shalom.